A historic day on tap today in Orlando with the voice of the Lions, Evan Weston. Appreciate you hopping on, Evan. It's Orlando and New York in the Eastern Conference Final. One of these teams going in to meet either Seattle or the LA Galaxy. Should be a ton of fun today, right down the road. We're recording on game day. I know the excitement around the team and the city certainly is there, and I would imagine it will carry itself over into the stadium tonight.
Yeah, we're looking at a sellout tonight. I expect a pretty raucous crowd. If it's anything like last weekend when Atlanta United was in town, it is going to be very, very loud in the building. Look, we're having quite a moment as a city right now where the Orlando Pride just won the NWSL championship last weekend. No city has ever won both MLS Cup and the NWSL title in the same year. We've got a chance to pull that off, be the soccer capital of the USA. So it's really there's a lot of buzz in town right now about the sport and about the team, and I expect a packed house tonight and a really vibrant environment for this game.
You know, everybody along the way in a playoff run has those moments of, oh boy, are we in trouble? I would imagine for Orlando, that was against Charlotte, right? You get to game three, you go to the PKs, but enough to advance. And I would say, despite the score line in a 1-0 win against Atlanta last week, I would say it was pretty clear Orlando was the better team. It was that opening round against Charlotte where you are concerned whether or not you are advancing or you're going home.
And what was interesting about the Charlotte series is that it actually kind of played out like the Atlanta game in that Orlando was clearly the better team between the two. The first game was a blowout. The second game on that turf ended 0-0. Orlando actually should have won the game. A Nico Lodero assist to Facu Torres for a goal in the 94th minute was wrongly called offside. It should have ended right there. It was disallowed. Charlotte wins in PKs. So you go to the third game, and Orlando played well, but just didn't finish their chances. And then Charlotte got a goal against the run of play late, and it looked like they were going to be out, kind of undeservedly. And there was already a lot of murmuring on my social media about this format and all this stuff. Trying to point fingers. And then Duncan McGuire draws a PK late on, dislocated his shoulder doing it. And Facu Torres was able to put it away. They win in PKs, so they just sort of, cardiac catsed it. And then you're right, the Atlanta game, it only ended 1-0, but there was never any real moment where it felt like Atlanta United was going to score a goal. They really didn't present any danger. Orlando's only conceded the one goal in game three against Charlotte in this whole playoff run. They've been so organized, so hard to break down. And I think it would be difficult to say they haven't earned their way to this point.
Some of the names that you just mentioned, a Torres, a Ladero, a McGuire, throw in Muriel and Ojeda and Enrique. This team is pretty loaded, Evan, when you think of that front four moving forward. And the pieces are so different. I feel like from a coaching perspective, it's hard to game plan against Orlando based on who they're playing because all of those guys do something different really well.
Yeah, and these playoffs has been a nice mix. They've started with Enrique at center forward, who's a little guy at 5'7", but he is just a terrorizer. He has crazy hops. Think of him as like almost one of these, little guards that are popping up in basketball now that can spring up and dunk the basketball. He's a little bit like that. He was almost 100% on aerial duels in the opening round against Charlotte, against Privet and Malanda, those two big center backs. So he can get up there. He likes to drop off the line, but he can play those traditional center forward spots as well. Has a nose for goal, as we saw against Atlanta. They start with him, and then with Ojeda at the 10. He's really been the difference maker for this team over the second half. When Orlando played the Red Bulls earlier this year, you can basically throw those games out. I think from both sides, Red Bulls didn't have Emil Forsberg, and Orlando was just not the team that we see right now. Ojeda is he's not a traditional number 10 in that he's not going to dictate the tempo and kind of keep the team in possession and try to play through balls. No, he wants to go. He's going to get in behind your center backs, especially in the space, I think, between Cameron Harper and Dylan Neal. This is where you're going to have to watch him. He makes that run off to the left and likes to cut the ball back to Facu Torres, who comes across. And then Ivan Angulo is a two-way guy, defends, led the league in sprints this year, has started every single match this season for Orlando City. Really underrated guy in terms of his off-ball contributions. And then like you said, off the bench, they can bring in a two-time MLS Cup champion in Nico Lodero, one of the most accomplished players in Serie A in the last dozen years in Luis Muriel, and a talented young American international center forward in Duncan Maguire. And they've been making the sub of Maguire and Muriel at about the 60 to 65-minute mark in these playoffs. And those two come in and are basically like think about it in baseball where the starting pitcher has become less valuable. These guys are the closers. They're going to come in and be the back end guys who finish you off. And gosh, they had so many chances to do so against Atlanta. It was wild that they didn't hook up for a goal, but more often than not, those guys, especially Muriel, who has really thrived in this 30-minute sub number 10 playmaker role, are going to be very, very dangerous. So the longer this goes, scoreless or tied, the better I think you'd feel as an Orlando fan in that, I guess maybe not because Orlando's the favorite, you want to be in the lead, but if you're Red Bulls, it's going to be harder and harder to force the game to penalty kicks as the game goes on.
As you said, maybe take the games that were played in March and in June, throw them out the window
Yeah, I don't think
in
they
some
matter at all. I
regards.
really don't.
But tell me from a standpoint from if you're a Red Bull supporter or fan, which clearly I know you're not, but if you are, where are you thinking that Orlando could be hurt? Is it in the run of play? Is it on set pieces? Is it their back line, which has been really good in the playoffs, but at times during the course of the regular season, maybe it wasn't always there?
Yeah, I think you're looking at if Red Bulls are going to win this game, they're going to do it the Red Bull way, right? And to me, the matchup to watch is Forsberg versus Cartagena. Forsberg to me changes everything for the Red Bulls. I'm sure you guys have talked about that ad nauseum. I know I'm speaking to Red Bull fans. You guys, you already know this how important he is to this team. Wilder Cartagena is one of the best number sixes in MLS at erasing number tens and shutting them out of games, preventing the ball from getting to them, winning second balls. That's where Red Bulls are going to have to be at their best, is when those second balls are contested. Forsberg versus Cartagena, and then can you support Emil Forsberg with those guys in midfield? And Morgan and Van Zee are going to have to be important in this as well. Can they get on the ball and get Orlando unsettled? Because if you're facing Orlando's set defense, you're not going to score on them. It's just extremely hard to do. I do think that Red Bulls with Forsberg are more of a top of the table team than a 7 seed. I don't think this is going to be like last week where Orlando was just obviously more talented all over the place. I think this is a much more even game. I think Oscar Pareja has a lot of respect for the Red Bulls, and he has had games where Red Bulls have won in lopsided fashion. He's had games where Orlando's won in lopsided fashion. You remember the U.S. Open Cup semifinal a couple of years ago? Maybe our audience doesn't want to
We
talk
try
about
not to worry about that one, Evan. We don't talk about that game this week.
but I do think those second balls, those Red Bull moments, that's where Orlando's got to be super sharp. And if Red Bulls can beat them to those consistently, they're going to have chances in the open field.
Evan, I'll see you in a few hours. I appreciate you coming on this morning, giving me a couple minutes. I know it's a busy day. Should be a ton of fun down the road, and looking forward to catching up with you.
Yeah, really excited about it, Matt. We'll talk to you in a bit.